Hey everyone, this is Scott from Forgot to Grow Up. Welcome to our Star Trek Picard Season 1, Episode 4 Thoughts video. I just finished watching the latest episode of Star Trek Picard, and I'm just going to be sharing my general thoughts on the episode. In this episode, Picard gets a bodyguard. That's pretty much all that happens in this episode. A little bit more, we get a little backstory on the Romulan relocation planet, and a little bit more about his relationship with some of the people there. We meet the kid. We see like a flashback of his of his efforts during the relocation before the synthetic attack on Mars. So it was interesting to kind of get a little bit of that backstory, and then kind of get the backstory for his future bodyguard, which by the end of this episode, that's what the kid who in the flashback becomes. Is he gets trained by the warrior nuns, as I believe as they're called at one point, or referred to. And so it was pretty cool to see that he gets a bodyguard. Obviously, he kind of needs a little protection. He can't really do it himself. He justifies it by, saying he wasn't able to protect the one of... I'm so bad with their names. Data's one daughter who died at the beginning of this, in the first episode. So I did like that we kind of, he was adding another crew member. I did kind of not quite put together that yes, we still had to add one. I didn't expect maybe this whole episode to revolve just around that, but it was still kind of interesting to learn more about that guy, or to see this introduction to this kid. The one thing I did find interesting was like how kind of dense Picard was a little bit to when it came to this kid being upset, and like the kid felt abandoned for what was it, 14 years. You couldn't say you missed the kid. You couldn't just like have a little compassion, for the kid who obviously looked up to you when he was younger and, felt betrayed. You just went straight for the mission part. Like, come on, Picard, you know better than that. So that was the one thing I thought was a little bit like, all right, Picard, I don't know. I guess maybe he's just trying to stay, like, kind of appeal to the kid's, like honor side, to like, because he was trained by the warrior nuns, and they have a certain way, so maybe that's what his idea was, and he didn't really quite think about it. But it does seem kind of in this season a little bit he keeps forgetting about people's feelings a little bit. I feel like he's just not recognizing that people might have some hurt feelings, and that he might have to maybe apologize to a couple people for these things. For as one person put it, he gave up for the last 14 years. So it's interesting to see that he hasn't quite clicked on that. His tension with Rafi in last episode, and a little bit in this episode, and now this kid who does join. Again, they both end up joining because they do obviously feel that connection that he thinks that they have. It's just he doesn't quite understand. It seems, at least to me, that he needs to sometimes apologize for having hurt some people's feelings, not called in 14 years. That's the thing. It's you could send one letter, Picard. I don't know. I just thought that was kind of an interesting part, at least to me, that it's, or at least my interpretation of what it seemed like, that he seems to be kind of missing, that some of these people, particularly the kid in this one, their feelings are a little hurt, and they just want you to say, maybe explain why you haven't, said hi in so long. But yeah, so that was an interesting bit in the main part of this episode. Just pretty much the whole episode. We do get a little bit of the story, a little bit more of the side story with Data's other daughter, whose name I still can't remember. It's that story kind of, it does intrigue me, but it doesn't at the same time, because it also has the complication with the Romulan Secret guy, her boyfriend, and so that I'm interested in, but we're also getting in such little bits that I'm like, okay, yeah, it just happens, and then I'm like, okay, what's the next bit we're gonna get for this? When is gonna come together that we're learning, like, why is she called the Destroyer? What's going on with that? So, and what's with the Borg? It's bringing up more questions for me than it's answering at this point. So that's where I'm like, okay, let's speed up that part a little bit, give me a little bit more answers, instead of you two lying to one another. But yeah, that was still kind of that was a part of this episode. Another fun thing I thought about this episode is that we got more holograms on the ship, and more of them are the same as the pilot, the captain guy, which I thought was fun. They have a hospitality one, which at first I was like, wait, is the doctor, is the emergency medical hologram just bored and acting as the hospitality one? And then they activate another pilot one who clearly was a different hologram. And so I was like, oh, okay, so he's got a bunch of different holograms, which makes sense since he doesn't actually have a crew. You'd have to have somebody to help him with the ship. Like, he didn't have a crew when we met him, I should say. Now he's got all the passengers that come with Picard. But that being said, it was just kind of interesting to see and kind of fun. It's kind of a fun bit. Like, I want to learn a little bit more about, like, well, who did this? Did you choose to have them all look like you, or did somebody pull a prank on you? Did I miss where you explained why they all look like you? Is no one going to bring it up? Am I just missing these things? I don't know. But that was a little fun bit to it. And then the best part, I think, about this episode, at least for me, is the way it ends off, which we get the arrival of 7 of 9, and Picard actually knows who she is, which is an interesting bit, because I don't know if they've ever actually met in canon before, but my knowledge doesn't go that deep. But that was a fun little, as she was introduced, and I knew as soon as she popped up that was going to be the end of the episode, and it was. So I'll be interested to see next week, seeing why she is joined up and how that kind of interconnects with everything. I'm guessing she's maybe the connection to the Borg cube and explaining what's going on with that. So, well, at least that's my hope, because I really want to know what's going on with that Borg cube. To me, it's just like, you don't just bring this thing up without answering all these questions. The one guy even had a bunch of questions. The Romulan guy had a bunch of questions today, and he didn't get any answers. His sister, I think it's his sister, at least. It seems that it might, I don't know, it's a little unclear that relationship sometimes. But anyways, yeah, I like that it ends off at 7 and 9, so I'm curious to see how we start off next episode, to see if it'll be another flashback, because that's the way these last two, at least, or maybe every episode so far, has started off with a flashback first before we start into the current, what's going on presently with them. So I'll be curious to see if that comes up again, and maybe if that explains what's going on with 7 and 9, but nonetheless, I am very curious to see what goes on with her character. But yeah, that's pretty much all my thoughts. It was a little bit longer than I thought, but yeah, be sure to let me know in the comments below what you thought about this episode. Thanks again for joining me today. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a good one.